If you're looking for a champion that is easy to learn but very hard to master, a champion that does really well in teamfights but can also get solo kills and win in lane, and a champion that can be played in any elo, whether you're in bronze or you're all the way in challenger, even in pro play this champion has been seen, then you're looking for Annie. She's the perfect champ for any beginners who are trying to learn the games and trying to learn the fundamentals, or any player that wants to climb and get a ton of elo with this champion. While she's not exactly an S+ tier in Wild Rift, she will always be a solid pick in the game, and no matter what patches come and go, she will always be a solid pick. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make her absolutely OP and how to play her to get those juicy wins. So in this video I'm going to be covering her abilities, combos, build, rune, spells, and lastly I'm going to be covering her tips and tricks, and that's a really important section as I'm going to be covering how to play her in a laning phase, how to play her in team fights, and other things like that. And I highly recommend watching the entire video. However, I will have timestamps on the screen right now and down in the description down below just in case you guys want to skip around, but I highly recommend watching the entire thing. I know this video is a bit longer than the other ones on YouTube, however that's because it will be the most in-depth guide and it's going to be the best value for your time. So without out of the way, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so first off, we're going to be going over Annie's abilities, but before we do that, we need to cover her passive. Now what her passive does is every 4 abilities that she throws, the 4th one is going to stun, and you can see how far you are from the stun with the stacks above her head. So right here you can see that there are 3 gray bars and 1 purple bar over her head right there. And once you see the purple bar, that means that your next ability is going to stun like that. And so every 4 abilities that you cast, you're going to be able to stun an enemy, and this is going to be really great for both your combos and just threatening in lane, right? If you see an Annie with 4 stacks, you're not going to be walking up for every CS. You're going to be giving her a bit more respect, and if they don't respect that, then you can punish them with combos, which I'm going to be going over a little bit later into the guide. Alright, so after that we have Annie's first skill, and what her first skill does is it will hit a target, and the important part of this ability is it's just a normal skill shot, but every time you kill a minion with this ability, the cooldown of this ability is going to be half, and you're going to restore all the mana that you used on this ability. So it's really important that you go for last hits with this ability, so you can go for an auto attack and then use your first skill just to make sure and ensure that you get that last hit. And this ability will also it will refund the cooldown, and it'll only be half if you kill something with it, and this includes enemy champions, any jungle monsters, or any minions. So it's really important that you try to go for last hits with this ability, because it's going to be really amazing if you can get that cooldown refunded and then use it more frequently. After that we have Annie's second skill, and what her second skill does is an AoE ability which will hit multiple enemies and go through any minions. It's great for wave clear or AoE stuns like that, and you're going to be able to stack up your passive, and then if you use your passive on your 3rd skill, you're going to be able to get a huge stun off in team fights, and it's going to be really effective for that and also clearing minion waves. So after that we have Annie's 3rd skill, and what Annie's 3rd skill does is it's going to shield an ally champion or any ally target. So you can even shield your bear, and if anyone attacks your ally target, then they're going to take some magic damage when they attack it. And it's also going to be really effective just for winning trades, especially if you're in the enemy minion wave and you're chasing and you use this ability. It's going to allow you to win a lot of those trades and just have a little bit of reflect from any damage that you take. And it's just a good ability overall, but it's going to be the ability that you maxed out last because it isn't a damaging ability. Lastly, we have Annie's ultimate, which is her most impactful ability and the ability that she's known for. And what her ultimate does, it's going to call down a bear, and you can choose which target this bear targets. So you can choose different targets, and once it's out of a certain range, it's going to be called back to you. So after it gets out of that range, the bear is going to teleport back to you. And you can actually use this to your advantage by if the bear is already in danger, you can tell it to go for an enemy that's too far away and then go away from it. You can also call the bear back to you, and it will go pretty quickly back to you if you tap on the bear. So instead of aiming it at a certain enemy, if you just tap, then the bear is going to come back and you're going to be able to call it back. So that's what her ultimate does. And now we're going to be going into some of Annie's combos. Alright, so now I'm going to be going into Annie's combos, and the first combo that we're going to be going over is her bread and butter flash combos. So these are the combos that you're going to be using when you need to extend your range. Is going to be the most common use of this ability, but you can also use this as a redirect, which I don't recommend, but it's also another option. So how this works is, if I want to hit that enemy target but he's too far away and I can't hit him from over here, then I can use a range extension with my flash and be able to hit him. So just like that. And it's also going to catch a lot of people off guard, especially if you're close up and then you use this range extension, and it'll be really useful, as you can see with her second skill right after. And yeah, as I said, this, you can apply this to her second skill, and this is what allows really good Annies to get those huge AoE stuns. It allows her to flash before the skills actually come out, and if you do it fast enough, then you're going to be able to catch so many teams off guard. And if you combo this with your ult, you can get a really juicy AoE stun plus a ton of damage with your Tibbers. And I forgot to mention in the skill section, but Tibbers does do burn damage next to targets that he's around, even if he's not attacking. So he will deal damage like that as well. So it's really important that you use him as an AoE asset in your combos. So the last combo that we are going to learn is going to involve Tibbers, and that's going to be Tibbers stun, where you don't use flash before you use Tibbers. If you use flash after you use your Tibbers, then you're going to just waste Tibbers. I'm not going to show it to you because I don't want to wait for the huge cooldown, but what you need to do is use your spell before using your Tibbers and then use your Tibber stun. And you see this a ton in pro play. After people have 4 stacks and they want an AoE Tibbers, then they'll use Protobelt and Tibbers right away just to get those huge stuns off. And if you play it right, then you're going to be getting huge ults off, and you're going to be winning team fights left, right, and center with this combo. So you want to be using Protobelt and then Tibbers, or you can use flash Tibbers, but I recommend using Protobelt as it will pretty much get the job done, but without having to waste your flash. And so that's going to be the combo that you need to know. Okay, I'll just show you what happens if you use your spell before. So if I try using Tibbers and flash, just like I used for my first and second skill, it's not going to work out, and Tibbers is going to spawn where I landed him. So if he could flash combo, that would be super OP. So luckily the devs did nerf him like that, but he's still really OP if you use Protobelt and flash, and most people are not going to catch it, especially if you are not in high elo. If you're below master elo, then no one's going to catch this happening, and you're going to be able to get those huge AoE stuns no problem. So the first combo that we're going to be learning is going to be Annie's basic trade, and how this works is you're going to be starting off with either 3 or 4 stacks, and then after that you're going to be using your third skill, and then use your first skill to stun the enemy, use your second skill just to damage them, and then an auto attack to follow up, and you're going to be proccing your electrocute there, and it's going to be dealing a decent amount of damage. But you also need to keep in mind what cooldowns the enemies have, just to make sure that this combo works out and you're not going to be out traded, which isn't going to happen too often if you use Annie's third skill properly and use proper spacing, which is really important for Annie, and I might talk about that a little bit later into the guide. So now I'm going to be going over Annie's all-in that she's going to be going in team fights with, and the reason why I'm not going to give you Annie's all-in in lane is it's because that's going to be really situational and dependent on what kind of situation you're in and how you need to use her skills. So I'm going to be going over her all-in combo that she's going to be using during team fights, and how her all-in works is that first she's going to be starting off with her third skill, and then she's going to be using her second skill and flash combo that we went over just to get a huge AoE stun and just be able to stun enemies and just catch enemies off guard. After that, you can use your first skill and then your ultimate just to deal more AoE damage, and then use your auto attack, first skill, and then another auto attack just to reset your auto attack and weave in auto attacks, because you want to be getting that extra damage whenever possible. So next up, I'm going to be going over Annie's build, and Annie's build can vary from player to player. However, this is the build that I recommend, and it's more of a kind of well-rounded but mostly AP build. It's going to give you a little wiggle room with health, but it's not going to be going for Rod of Ages, which I know a lot of people like. However, it's just a little bit too slow for me, and it doesn't get me snowballing as fast as I want to. So the first item that I like going is Luden's Echo, but as I said, you can also go Rod of Ages if you like this scaling. I personally don't like it too much because it takes too long to get online, and having a Luden's early can help you win a lot of those early team fights, which can decide how the game goes later into the game and allow you to snowball more harder. So the first item I go is Luden's Echo. It gives you ability power, max mana, and ability haste. And after that, I go for a boot item. This is pretty situational, but most of the time I will go for Boots of Lucidity. And my enchant that I go is also going to be situational, but most of the time you're going to be going for Proto Belt. If the enemy team has a lot of burst, if you're laning against a Zed or Fizz or someone like that where they have a ton of burst damage and you're really scared of dives and stuff, then you can go for Hourglass, but most of the time I would go Proto Belt. After that, I like going Rabadon's Death Cap, which will give you a huge AP power spike, especially if you're snowballing. You want to rush this item as it's going to be letting you get a ton of damage really early on into the game. After that, you can go for 3 situational items. The first situational item that I recommend is going to be Liandry's Torment. This will give you more max health and ability power, as well as a really great passive for team fights, which will allow you to deal burn damage over time. You can also be going for Morellonomicon, which will give you Grievous Wounds and allow you to apply Grievous Wounds on any champions that have a ton of healing. If you're up against Mundo, Fiora, or like a healing support like Sona or Soraka, and that's really annoying, then you can go for this item and it's going to be mitigating a lot of that. And you can also be going for Void Staff as a situational item, and this will give you more ability power. Another situational item that I do see is going to be Awakened Soul Stealer, which gives you ability power, but the most important aspect of this ability is it's going to give you ultimate cooldown reduction. So if you want Tibbers to come off of cooldown more often, then go for this item. The last situational item that you can go is going to be Infinity Orb, and it's going to be giving you max health, ability power, and allow you to finish off enemies a lot easier. If you are having trouble just finishing off the last bit of enemies, then that's going to help you a lot. The runes that you want to be going for Annie is going to be Electrocute as your first rune. This is pretty much a no-brainer unless you're playing support Annie, where you can go for Airy or something like that. But for mid Annie, I would recommend Electrocute 100% of the time. After that, you can be going for your second rune, and that's going to be pretty situational. I like taking Brutal because it allows me to snowball early game. For your third rune, you can be going for a situational rune. I like going Second Wind as it helps me sustain more in lane. And lastly, I like going for Mana Flow Band as my last rune. Because I don't like building max mana early on into the game, as I see it as a waste of gold that can be spent on other things. But if you don't like going Mana Flow Band, then you can be going for Hunter Genius if you feel like you're going to snowball really hard. If you're in a matchup where you feel like you can win easily, then this is a great rune to go for, as you'll have more cooldown reduction for every takedown that you get. For Annie's spells, you're going to be going for Ignite and Flash. Ignite for the extra burst damage, as well as you're impairing your enemy from healing, and Flash just for the versatility and the combos. So those are going to be the spells for Annie. Obviously, if you're playing support Annie, those are going to change, but those are my build runes and spells for Annie. If you have any questions or you're confused about any items, I have an itemization guide. The link will be in the description down below. And if you have any questions about Annie's build, any situational items, or any builds that you want me to try out, then leave it down in the comment section below. And by the way, if you are enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and subscribe, as it does help out the channel a ton, and these videos do take a long time to record and edit. So a like and a sub to the channel would be absolutely appreciated. It's completely free and it only takes like 5 seconds of your time, and if you do that, then I'll be able to share my knowledge with more Wild Rift players like you guys. So thank you so much to everyone that is subscribed to me right now. But next up, we're going to be going over Annie's tips and tricks, and this is going to be the most important part of the video and what's really going to be changing your game with Annie. So for Annie's tips and tricks, the first thing I'm going to be covering is going to be in the laning phase. Now, in the laning phase, you really need to do 2 things to really help you win in the lane as Annie. And the first thing is going to be making sure that you know how many stacks your passive has and keeping track of your passive and using it properly. The biggest mistake I see beginner Annies make is using her passive not efficiently and not properly. So what you want to do with Annie's passive is keep track of how many you have, and you can surprise your enemy by using your third skill and then immediately throwing out your stun, and that's going to catch a lot of enemies off guard, especially if they don't know about Annie's skills. And this catches a lot of low elo players off guard if you are smurfing or something like that. But it's really important that you keep track of your passive, and when you have your passive up, it's important that you use that as a time period where your enemy can't last hit safely. They have to back off a bit because they need to respect the stun that you have, and they need to respect that. And if they don't, then you need to punish them really hard. Go for an all-in, go stun them, and take a free and easy trade with your stun. So be sure to use your passive properly in lane. And the second thing that you need to know with Annie is going to be cooldowns. Most mid laners will out trade you if they use their full combo on you and you only get 1 or 2 abilities off, and you don't really get any auto attacks, or you don't get to proc electrocute in between. Then the enemy's going to win the trade. So you really need to keep track of different cooldowns in lane to win the laning phase. Make sure you know what the cooldown for Fizz E is, or for ZW, or any of those skills that are really key for your opponent to win the lane. So if they have those key abilities up, if they can win the trade, then don't go for trades. Try to bait those abilities out and then go for trades. So be sure to know the enemy's key abilities and try to bait them out. For team fights, what you want to be doing with Annie in ganks and team fights is going to be looking for really massive stuns with either her ult or her second skill, and really look for engages. But the biggest thing is make sure you have follow-up engage. The biggest thing is to make sure you have follow-up for your engages. And a really big mistake I see with Annie's is that they'll land a perfect, beautiful stun on like all 5 of the enemy champions with their ultimate, but there will be no follow-up after that. None of their teammates will come in and deal the damage necessary, and you're just going to be left with a bunch of low health enemies and a dead Annie, which is not what you want to be seeing. So make sure you have follow-up from your team, or make sure that you have enough damage just to burst everyone down before going for those really critical engages. And just be smart with your abilities and be smart in team fights, and understand how much damage you can do, how much damage your team can do, and if it's worth it to go for an engage. Maybe you need to wait for another player to join the team fight before going for those juicy ultimates. So those were my tips for Annie. I hope it was helpful for all you guys who are trying to learn this champion. I promise you, during the early periods of time when you're first learning this champ, it's not going to be as fun as when you actually master this champ. So if you are learning this champ, I recommend that you try to push through the when you're first learning this champ and really master this champ, because when she's played correctly, she can be extremely strong, as you can see in pro play and in high elo Annie replays, where they're allowed to get these huge stuns off, or they're allowed to have so much impact on the map. And if they use Tibbers properly, she just seems like an absolutely OP champ. So just keep at it and keep going. If you did enjoy this video, or if it helped you in any way, a like and a sub to the channel would be absolutely amazing. But thank you guys so much for watching again, and I will see you soon. Bye.